Hello, and welcome to Age of Learning's first webinar on getting your kid ready for their first year of school, whether that's TK or kindergarten. I'm so happy you're here. My name is Robert Kalinowski. I'm head of design research and consumer insights here at Age of Learning. I have a PhD in education, and my areas of expertise really focus on cognitive development in the early school years. So exactly this age period that we're talking about, preschool, and some of my research goes up through 5th grade. I also study the ways that kids grow up with media and situated in their full ecological context with the media landscape, their homes, their families, their schools, and the way all of these different factors interplay to guide the development of a growing person. So again, I'm so glad you're here. I put in the title 6 months to go, but then I checked my calendar, it's March. So actually we have maybe just a little over 5 months to go. I hope you did all right with registering your kid for school. If not, now's a good time to do that. I don't know about you, but for us, we were anxiously trying to send the materials in at 12:01 a.m. to make sure our kid got into the school, but we did it. So we are, me and my wife, we have a 4-year-old entering TK for the first time this August. We got another one 2 years younger that we'll have to worry about in a little bit. But I'd love to hear from you. Are you entering a kid into school for the first time this year? So please share in the comments or reach out to us on social media. I really want this to be about you. I want it to be a conversation. So let me know what you think. So let's talk about getting your kid ready for school. So in my line of work, I listen to consumers all the time. That's my job, right? And the areas that come up a lot are getting ready to read, getting ready for early numeracy. And another one that comes up a lot is this idea of being ready just to go to school. Does my kid even have these skills to share and be part of a school community? So I've got 2 little ones at home. I can tell you right off the bat, they are terrible. They are terrible at sharing at home. And maybe you have the same phenomena in your house. One thing I can tell you about getting your kid ready for school, or as we say, disciplined for school, is that the behavior of kids, young kids in their home, is actually very context dependent. So you might be surprised. Putting your kid in this new environment of a school, especially if it's a well-run, well-managed environment, they might surprise you with the behaviors that they can come up with. But even so, you're here to get tips on getting your kid ready for school. So number 1 tip is take a deep breath and relax. You showed up to this webinar. You're getting something ticked off your list. You're doing the right thing. Your kids will grow up and will develop, and they'll learn a lot of those skills once they're in school. Now, if you want to go further than that, one thing that you can do is start to work on those routines that your kids will need to do in school. And again, it's set up to teach them these things, but you can help get them ready. So the one that often is a sticking point is using the bathroom, right? Maybe at home, you always help your kid use the bathroom. In school, you're like, I don't know, are they always going to be there to help? Does my kid have to know how to use the bathroom before they go to school? So the short answer is no. They don't have to know how to use the bathroom completely independently before they go to school. However, the more that you can help them out with that beforehand, then the more actually you're helping out your kid's future teacher, and you're helping them to run the classroom. So go through bathroom routines, right? Pretend it's a school day. This is one of the best things you can do to get your kid ready for school, is just play school. All right, it's time for school. Let's go to school. It's time to use the bathroom. And walk your kid through the different steps in the routine to use the bathroom, right? So first, you feel the urge to go. Then you go into the bathroom. Then, and so on through the whole steps, washing your hands, drying, and being done. An activity that you can do outside the bathroom is you can buy or make these routine cards, right? So these are simple pictures. Sometimes they're photographs or sometimes they're icons of the different steps, right? And you have these cards with your kid. This is not in the bathroom. This is another activity you can do with them. And you say to them, oh, hey, you need to go to the bathroom at school. Which one comes first? Which one comes last? And you work with your kid on putting these cards in order. It's a fun activity. Listen, anything that they can do with you one-on-one is fun, right? So it's a fun activity for them, and it prepares them for this kind of skill. But again, if they don't get all the way there by the time you start school, it's totally fine. Don't worry about it. Now, I'd love to hear your comments. Is that something that you worry about? I've heard some other things like, does my kid need to know how to tie their shoes? The answer is no. Do they need to know how to keep track of their stuff? The answer is no, but that's a good thing to practice at home. Each kid will have their own special cubby, and the teacher helps to manage that kind of thing. But let me know, like, what are your concerns when it comes to, as we say in my area, disciplining your kid for school, getting them ready to be part of that pro-social group that's there ready to learn? All right, so the number one comment that I get over years and years is early literacy. I don't know if my kid is going to be ready to learn to read. They're going to be going to school. I don't know what to expect. Maybe some kids can read already. I don't know what kind of homework they're going to be getting, what kind of assignments they get, and this stresses people out a lot. And my number one advice is take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath. I want to point out that there are entire societies, whole countries, right, where the literacy rate at adulthood is 100%, and yet they don't push their kids to read when they're 4. We live in a literate society, and if your kid is a human being learning and growing in this society, they will learn those early literacy skills. That's part of something that we do as part of our shared environment. And by shared environment, I mean big shared, like on the level of a nation, on the level of a whole culture. So the main advice that I have to give people is to take the pressure off, right? Now is really the time for your kid to be exploring their interests. There's going to be time later for people to worry about standardized tests and expectations of the world. Now is the time for you to encourage what your kid is already motivated in, to allow them to explore and imagine and to find themselves without having that pressure. Now, that said, you're here because you want to get your kid ready for school, you want to get them ready to read. I don't know about you, I work, I go home, I'm ankle deep in diapers and clothes, and I gotta cook, and I gotta clean, and I gotta manage the crying babies. Although I have a very lucky life, and my life is awesome because I have those crying babies, it's a lot of energy and it's a lot of work. So for me, the main literacy activity that I do every day is I just read books with my kids as part of their nighttime routine. So if you're not doing that already, I strongly encourage it. Find a time in the day that works for you. For us, it's right before bed as part of their routine. And pick out books and read with your kids. The number one benefit of this is not actually transferring the ability to read. The number one advantage is that you are giving kids a culture, right? You're giving them a culture of books. Books are fun. Books are nice and warm. I associate books with pleasurable things, of getting attention from my parent. When they go to school, guess what? The classroom is going to be full of books. They're going to be seeing other people with books, right? So this is already going to create a cultural connection between your home environment and school by just giving kids exposure to books in a really relaxing, pleasurable way. If you're already reading books to your kid, you want to go further than that, right? So here's an activity that doesn't take any extra time because you already got the book open. You pick a letter. It could be the first letter of your kid's name. Let's say your kid is named Constantine, right? Oh, C. Look, that's the letter C. You point to it in the book. What is C for? Oh, C's for your name. C's for Constantine. Hey, do you see other letter C's in this book? And you can make it like a word hunt. Letter hunt, excuse me, where the kid is looking through and identifying that individual letter C and associating it with some kind of meaning. C is a letter. It makes the K sound that starts Constantine. So already you've opened up this whole world of the meaning of literacy, that these funny little squiggles, they mean something individually. They're each individually letters, and that letters can form sounds, and sounds can form words, just by doing that game. Something I gotta point out, to me, I thought it was like, oh, everyone does this, but apparently they don't. Like, for example, I noticed my wife wasn't doing it, and she also is a PhD in education, but she focuses on higher education. So when you're reading a book that's about letters, like Dr. Seuss's ABCs or Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, there are letters featured in the story, right? When you say the letter, point to the letter. A told B and B told C, I'll meet you at the top of the coconut tree. Well, don't lose the opportunity to point out like, hey, that is A. A is the character in the story, and that's what A looks like. Yeah, so these are things that you can do that I hope won't tax too much of your time and energy, that can really help your kid gain a great foundation for loving learning, loving books. And again, to emphasize, it's more about the culture, it's less about the literacy skill at this point. But again, I want to hear from you. What are you already doing with your kids? What do you want more of? What are you most worried about? I want to hear from you, and I'd love to address those comments at the end. So let's talk about numeracy. Then I'm going to show you some digital activities that can help with these things, and then I'd love to get to some comments. So mostly I hear about literacy. Is my kid ready to learn to read? How can I get my kid ready to read, and so on. But, you know, second place would be math. Parents are like, does my kid need to know math before they start TK or K? What do they need to know? What are the expectations for my kid going into transitional kindergarten and kindergarten? You know, expectations are going to vary school by school, community by community. It also is going to depend a lot on just like what kind of population is there at the school. It could be a population that just loves early math, and so maybe all of the parents in that community, they really do that kind of thing. So I'm not going to go too much into what the expectations are, other than to say they're going to learn these things in school. So if you didn't do anything, don't worry about it. It's okay. It's okay. But if you do want to get your kid more ready to learn, you know, one thing you can do is, you know, I want to stop and digress for a little bit here. This is just one example of a theme that I see in my work all the time, right? I have a niece who never went to preschool, and she was getting ready to start, I don't know, kindergarten or first grade. And being a social scientist, and I wanted to try out this new numeracy, a standardized numeracy cognitive test on her. So I was hanging out with my niece, and we were doing this activity together, and she couldn't do it. You know, so she couldn't reliably count even small numbers when I put out manipulatives for her. And she must have been already like at least 6, right? She is ahead of her class today, all right? So this whole idea of let's push early math learning, you know, earlier, I refer to that as the American question, as a peculiar question. And I call it the American question after Jean Piaget, who is a celebrated natural scientist a century ago living in Belgium. And he observed his kids growing up, just, you know, it was my own kids are just growing up the way normal kids grow up. And he documented different stages that he thought stages of cognitive development when it came to their understanding of the world. And this really was a groundbreaking work, and it just opened the door to my field, which is cognitive development in childhood, right? And he became quite famous for doing this, and he toured the world giving speeches about these stages. And in the United States, at every talk he gave, Piaget would get the same question, like, oh, thank you, Dr. Piaget, that's awesome, thanks for telling us. How do we make that stage happen sooner? And he just didn't get it. Why do you want it to happen sooner? So I want to push back on this whole culture of making it sooner. And instead, again, I just want to emphasize that your kid is your perfect, beautiful kid, and enjoy their childhood. Seize the opportunity to focus on what they want to do, on what they want to explore. Build that foundation for a love of learning by focusing on their own curiosity. That's my 2 cents, all right? But again, if you want to push forward, here's something for you to understand. Typically, the first thing that kids learn to do is the sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But they don't know that 1 is distinct from 2, and they certainly don't know that 3 stands for 3 objects. So it's just the sound that they're producing first, and it's quite disconnected from understanding quantity or counting or the distinctness of numbers, or even that this squiggly symbol means 3, right? So something that you can do early on to break apart this, it's just sounds, into, oh no, it actually means something in the world, is make it concrete. Kids need to learn math in this concrete way, in the world in which we live, through play, through touching things. So a simple activity you can do while you're making dinner, while you're at the grocery store, while you're playing with their toys with them. Take 3 objects, say it's like 3 bananas, and count them out one by one. 1, 2, 3. Take the 3 bananas, show it to your kid. How many is it? They might say 1, 2, 3. They might say the wrong number. They might say banana, right? But through this activity of going through, oh, here's one banana. And then you do it with something else like toy cars. One toy car. Through doing this activity, just with like a set of 3, right? You start to establish for your kid the concreteness of numbers, that these sounds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually they mean something. Yeah, again, just to go back to what I was saying before, if you are looking at a social media post or some kind of pop science article and it says, do these 3 steps in this order for your kid to learn math, I'm here to tell you as an expert in the development of math cognition, that is not how it works. The development of math cognition is very complex, and it's situated in this ecological context of all of these different influences coming in. So no, it's not first do this, then this, then this, and then your kid knows math. Allow this developmental process to happen. Expose your kids to math, to counting right now, counting and sorting, in a gentle and fun way. All right, so let me move on now. I'm gonna talk a little bit about some digital solutions, and then I'm gonna get to your comments. And I wish I could be hearing your comments right now because I just feel like I'm talking out into the ether. I don't know, if you are really ticked off and you disagree with everything I just said, let me know, because I would love to hear it. But again, I don't know about you. For me, I love these one-on-one activities. I try to do them. The only one I really reliably do every day is read with my kids. This other stuff is really ad hoc just because I'm really strapped for time, you know? If I get home and I need to quickly clean the house and make dinner for my kids, and of course they want to spend time with me. They're up in my face, but I can't be with them all the time. So one thing that I turn to are these digital solutions. So I'm going to show you 3 activities from ABCmouse right now that can help with these. So let me put in my earpiece real quick. All right, so these 3 are from ABCmouse, and I'm going to play this. You holler if you can't hear it, all right? Here we go.
Bridge builder. Letters A to I.
Oh, it's not going through?
Can you just unplug the USB and plug it back in?
All right, so I'm hearing the audio feed's not going through. Doing the old unplug and plug it back in trick. Let's see if it works. Should I also like smack it and blow the dust out? All the Nintendo cartridges. Anybody get that reference? Oh, awesome, it's working. Or was it yes, you got the Nintendo reference?
I got the Nintendo reference and we're up.
Okay, great. So check it out. So here's 3 activities from ABCmouse I want to show you. This first one's on literacy.
Farm bridge
Let's get the
builder.
volume up a little more.
Letters A to I.
Here's your farm bridge builder. You got your loading screen. Listen to this.
Tap every letter tile to build a bridge.
A. Apples. B. Barn.
So to be clear, when you see that poof, that's
C.
the kid's
Cow.
finger tapping it, right? So your kid would be on this, they heard
D.
the instructions,
Ducks.
and what they're doing is, in order to advance through the game, they have to tap on these letter tiles, and they have to tap on them in the correct order. They can't just
F.
tap on them randomly.
Farmer.
And you might be looking at this and being like, so?
G.
Like, what does this
Goat.
teach? Is this supposed to teach them to read? Think about it. When a kid learns the alphabet, they just learned the song, right? Have you ever heard a kid ask you, what's an LMNOP? What's an LMNOP? Right? It's just sounds to them. They don't understand distinct letters that each have their own meaning, right, to make words. So what this is doing is it's encouraging your kid to pick out each one by one. There's no alphabet song there. There's the celebration screen. Don't want to talk over this. Yay! Woohoo!
Way to go!
This was so, I love it. I love the art design on this. There's your prize meter filling up. Let me just speak on that last activity for a moment. So what that activity does is a number of things. It gets them to understand the letters of the alphabet as distinct from the alphabet song. It makes them push the letters in order, and also it gets them reading left to right. That activity always goes left to right because we read left to right. So simple, fun activities like this actually do build the foundation that they're going to need to learn to read. Okay, so I mentioned math. Part of math is sorting. Kids are going to be doing a ton of sorting in TK and kindergarten. So this is an example of a sorting activity.
Mixed up. Weather gear.
This one's about weather gear.
Drag the items passing by into the correct bowls.
So here, the kid sees these 3 chefs, and the 3 chefs have these 3 different weather icons, and they're sorting these items into each of the chef's bowls. There goes the summer guy. He's gonna go make his summer clothes cake. There's winter, gonna make a winter cake. And then here's just a rainy weather guy waiting for his ingredients. Okay, got him. Checked them all off. Weather pie. Prize meter, unlocked prize. So as I mentioned, kids are going to be doing a lot of sorting, and an activity like that just gets them ready for that sort of activity. Here's another great one. So this one is under your art section, letter traceables. So this is not the kid doing it, that's the demo. So it demonstrates how to make the A, and then this is the kid doing it, right? Make the A, lights up, celebration screen, that's it. And again, you might be asking, like, what's the big deal with that? So what about tracing this A? Again, it gets them ready for not necessarily writing with a paper and pencil. They're 2 different modalities. One's a tablet, one's paper and pencil. You also have like watercolor and paint. There's all different modalities that kids need to learn. But what this does is it shows them that, oh, the A is like a picture, and you learn how to draw the picture. Okay, so now we've gotten to the fun time of answering your comments. And so I have here producer Kate. Thank you so much. All right. So I have some questions from you guys. And thank you so much for writing them in. I'm going to go through and read them. So somebody asked, what are the academic milestones before school? And again, I have to go back to what I was saying before. First of all, to answer just the face of the question, the academic milestones before school are going to vary school by school, and even like, you know, microculture by microculture. They're going to be different. And if you want to find out exactly what those are, I would recommend contacting your new school. There are national standards for example, what kids should be learning in kindergarten. There aren't really standards for what they need going in, but what we've done as a culture is we've together sort of decided, like, oh, you know, a kid should be able to do that before going to school. And I want to reconsider that, right? Learning happens with natural human development. There are certain things that it's just much easier to learn when you're a little bit older. And my recommendation is to not concern yourself too much about the academic milestones before school, but instead to seize on this very precious, very narrow window of early childhood, and to not lose sight of the opportunity cost, right? Because if you're at home and spending unpleasant time drilling your kid with whatever, what are you not doing? Then you're missing out on the joyful time of encouraging your kid's own curiosity. I would say the best thing you can do to get your kid ready for the academics of school is actually to just start to form those warm associations with school, like playing school, like pretend school while you're at home, having a lot of books around. It's a great question, though. Okay. Are there skills outside math and literacy I should be preparing my child for? I would say definitely. Again, not to put any big pressure on it, right? But in the early school years, actually, the thing that the teachers want most is they would love to have kids coming in who are disciplined for school, in the sense that they're not, running amok and drawing a full teacher's attention away from the rest of the class. They would love that, right? So some of the ways that you can help get your child prepared to learn in school, outside math and literacy, right, is to do these routines, as I mentioned. So one of those routines is bathroom. Another routine is like washing hands. Oftentimes when kids come in from the playground, they'll wash their hands, or they'll wash their hands before snack. Snack time, right? In schools, often a snack time is an organized activity. You've got all the kids sitting around little tables having their little snack. So by playing pretend school and getting your kid ready for these rituals, right, for these pieces of the school schedule, you're helping them out that way. And you're also helping the teacher out. They'll love you. All right. What if my child shows no interest in math or literacy skills? Awesome. I'm going to turn that question on its head. What if my child shows no interest in math or literacy skills? That's wonderful. My question is, what do they show interest in? And to cultivate that interest. And as a PhD in education, an expert in differential psychology, right? So I take massive data sets that are collected representationally over many, many years throughout the United States, and I crunch this data to understand the foundations of cognitive mechanisms that predict learning. As someone who knows all that, I'm telling you, if your kid shows a ton of interest in unicorns, then dive deep into unicorns. That's what I would do. For my 4-year-old, yeah, she does show interest, a lot of interest in math and literacy, but she also shows a lot of interest in unicorns and in theatricality. And it's not helpful for bedtime, but one of the things that she started doing is she'll go into the bathroom that's attached to her bedroom with her 2-year-old sister. And then she'll say, it's time for the show, it's time for the show. And they'll burst out of the bathroom like they're putting on a rock show. They'll go to another side of the bedroom. They'll dance all around. She's playing a stuffed animal like it's a rock guitar. And the little one's like, she's got a funny dance move where she falls on her butt every time. And they'll do this like 5 or 6 times in a row. And to me, that is what I want my kids to be doing right now. But again, I'm happy to hear any of your pushback. I want to keep the conversation going. Next question, how do I differentiate activities for different levels that my twins are at? I love this. I love this. So my life is very hard. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we work also, and we don't have anyone else to help us. My life is not hard compared to you, sir, with the twins. So my hat goes off to you. You beat me. Congratulations. So your question, how do you differentiate activities for different levels that your twins are at? So when it comes to doing in-person activities, I would say you differentiate by their interests, right? And you could also differentiate by their ability level. So if one is interested more in cars, you might do the counting activity with cars. If one can count to 17 and the other one can count to 3, then you can adapt that counting activity that I talked about between 17 cars and 3 cars, right? The other way is through media, right? So my kids have different interests and they get to pick what they want to watch. So they'll watch educational shows on like streaming services. Number Blocks is outstanding on Netflix. They also watch some stuff on Disney+. And then if you have digital solutions like ABCmouse, like one account, you can split it up into different kids. So you can have 3 kids on the same account, and it will respond differently according to your kid, their interests, and their levels. You can also go into the settings and crank up one, like if you think, oh, well, this twin is more advanced, right? You can crank their age up on an app like ABCmouse so that they're getting activities that are more correctly leveled for them. And last question, how do I get my kids excited about learning? And I would love to hear the specific context that you're in to ask a question like that, how to get your kids excited about learning. I do ethnographic work as well. So I would say that it depends on your specific context, but It's never going to go wrong for you to lean into your kids' interests. Ask your kids, what do you want to do today? And you follow their curiosity. And there's going to be your best leverage to get them excited. And again, like if they're not excited specifically about early numeracy, my advice is don't worry about it. Then that's not what you're doing right now. And don't worry about it. They'll be okay. Do we have some more? Yeah. Thank you, Kate. All right, so I got 3 more here. Do you like these answers? I can't hear you, so please keep the comments coming. Let me know if I'm giving you too much information, too little. I would love to tailor this for you. All right, next question. Does my child need to be able to identify all the letters of the alphabet before starting kindergarten? If not, what is the expected level of letter recognition? So that's a great question. I feel like, that question makes a bunch of assumptions that we shouldn't make, right? For example, let's say you have a kid who's new to the country and they grew up in a culture that doesn't use the Latin alphabet, right? Maybe they know how to read, but they know how to read the Cyrillic alphabet, right? And so this kind of expectation of that, everyone's coming in as early as kindergarten. Everyone needs to come in at the same level. Everyone does know how to identify each letter of the alphabet, but nobody knows how to read a 3-letter word. That's unrealistic, and trust me, your teachers know that. Your teachers have been doing this job for a while. If they're a new teacher, at least they're gonna have other more experienced teachers and administrators to ask questions of. So the reality is that I don't care where you live or what school your kid is going to, there is going to be a distribution of ability levels, right, in that classroom. And if your kid can't identify all the letters of the alphabet in kindergarten, that is fine. So kindergarten teachers are well prepared for that contingency, okay? If that concerns you, I would say great things to do are to get posters with the alphabet on it, get toys, those toys that have the magnet letters on like a magnetic whiteboard, workbooks, you can get solutions like ABCmouse. At kindergarten, your kid has reached this developmental stage where they're gonna start to pick it up faster. And we got 5 months before school starts, right? So your kid is not just going to be exposed to the planet and exposed to your teachings for 5 months. Your kid will grow up 5 more months. They will develop cognitively 5 more months, even if you don't do any of this. My point being that they'll be ready to learn this in kindergarten. And I'd love to hear a follow-up from you on that. All right, so is character education important for preschoolers or too soon? I love this. So this is a fabulous question. I think it really gets down to culture. So I'll tell you about a very micro culture of my own household, right? So my viewpoint is I really want to develop my kids' sense of will. I want them to know what they want, and I want them to be able to express that. So I lean hard into their will, their willpower. Some parents really don't like that. They wish their kid wasn't willful, or they call that what do they say, difficult, like a difficult child, and I'm like, no, willful, that's what I want. So I try to cultivate this will at the expense of other things, like, no, wait your turn, don't express that, it's time to listen, it's time to be quiet. In the home, I kind of let my kids be the star because I don't know that there's any other place that they can be that. So I like my kids to shine that way, and I hold back on disciplining them for like sharing and turn taking and that kind of thing at this time. However, of course, the teacher is going to want those kids to share and take turns. So is it too soon? No, I wouldn't say it's too soon. But I also would resurface what I said earlier, which is that kids behave differently in different contexts. A good classroom environment is going to be set up to encourage turn taking and that kind of behavior. And actually, my kids in preschool, they do those behaviors. So at home, they don't do it, and at school, they do. Go figure. And I got one more here. Does my child need to be able to tie their shoes and manage their own clothing like zippers and buttons before starting schools? They definitely don't need to know how to tie their own shoes. There is an activity you can do, though, to manage their stuff. So every school, they're going to have like a bin, a cubby usually there's like a pull-out box, right? So your kid's stuff goes in that cubby. Usually you bring it on Monday, you take it home on Friday. And in between that time, yeah, your kids will learn what their stuff is. You have to put their names on everything, obviously. But that is an activity that you can replicate at home. You can play school, and you can get a bin and say it's their cubby and say, what do you want to bring to school today? And they'll pick out a handful of items, and they can put them in that cubby. All right, a few more? Yep. Thank you, Kate. All right. Oh, cool. Should I be concerned that one of my twins transposes numbers and letters? Oh my goodness. Another person raising twins. I'm weak compared to you. I'm just weak. I want to be that strong, but I'm not. So my hat goes off to you for raising twins. I would love twins. I just think I'd die. One of them transposes numbers and letters. This is a great question. So actually part of cognitive development is you start to become more aware of the orientation of things on a page as you grow older. So we know this from a number of different sources, including reductive lab studies. Young children don't express surprise when an object is presented to them upside down, right? So there's something about cognitive development where this orientation piece, especially when it comes to an abstract form of like an image on a piece of paper, that it comes along later. So I would say that this is just part of normal development. Certainly it's the commonest thing in the world to write a D or a P or a C backwards. It's like, you know, that's super common. It's not anything to be concerned about. How does play relate to my child's academics? Some of this just seems like games. That's a great question. So, I hope I was explaining it while we were watching some of the educational games from ABCmouse here. So every game relates to your kid's academics. So if you look at that one with the chefs making some kind of weather pie and they're asking for like the different ingredients for their weather cakes or whatever, this does a couple things. One, it's sorting. So sorting is a really important foundational skill for building math sense. So that is something that your kids will be doing. And even if your kid doesn't go to school, it's just an important piece of learning how to think in the modern world, is how do we sort things. Also, there's general knowledge. So a lot of these things that look like games, take a step back and ask yourself, if I was born yesterday, would I know what these things are? So in that game I showed you, you would have to know what an umbrella is just by the picture. Like maybe you don't know the word umbrella, but you have to know what an umbrella is. And you have to associate umbrella, the icon of an umbrella, with the icon of rain coming from a cloud. Those are really abstract concepts, really difficult concepts. But this is part of building worldly knowledge, right? I know what an umbrella is, I know what it's for, I know how to sort it. And you know what, when I stop and I think about, yeah, it's basically any game. If I was born yesterday, I don't think I could play that game. So all of those games in some way build what we call general knowledge or worldly knowledge. All right. And whoop, coming up, got some more. Thank you, Kate. Okay, great question, great question. What else besides reading books helps? What else besides reading books helps? So reading books, I mentioned, is helpful for building these literacy skills, but mostly you're building a culture, right? A culture of warmth, happiness associated with books. When they go to school, they'll see books and they'll have that positive association with the environment there. But there's tons of other things that you can do. So another thing is to have these icons, right, that are letters. You and I, we look at them and we don't even think twice, like that's a letter, yeah. You know, for a kid, it's a very specific symbol. And we're trying to get them familiar with that symbol and that it means something. So you want to seek out tools and experiences that help with that. So other than books, there are magnetic letters, there's jigsaw puzzles where each piece is a letter, right? So just having your kids pick up and manipulate these 26 very specific symbols to get familiar with them, that helps a lot. Scribbling. So you might think, my kid's scribbling, so what? One of the most fascinating methods in studying human development and studying child development is studying kids' scribbles. So the more opportunity you give your kid to scribble, do yourself a favor, save samples, and you can see the development of these scribbles. At first, it's going to be always kind of in the same direction, right? The next development is there'll be some element of a loop, and then by the time your kid's 2, they'll be able to close a shape, right? Like a rough circle. And it moves forward from there. Before too long, your kid, exposed to you and exposed to reading, they're gonna start writing scribbles left to right, like they're writing letters or like writing these little symbols left to right. So they're not letters, but they're writing it in a way as if it is letters. So just a lot of exposure to paper and getting to scribble, that helps a lot too. And then look, again, I'm a very busy parent, so I also rely on digital solutions. So watching TV shows and having apps that are focused on literacy, for me, also bridges a lot of the gaps. These things are really well designed, and having my kids exposed to it helps them out. Okay, next question. If I think my child needs additional support or intervention before starting kindergarten, like transposing letters, how would you recommend addressing it with their teacher? Yeah, so I think that I made my position clear, and it's my position based on human development, cognitive development, and so on, which is that I wouldn't be concerned about transposing letters, but it's always a great idea to try to get a meeting with your kid's teacher and to share your concerns with the teacher. And what's funny about interventions, really glad that someone used the word intervention, right? What's funny about interventions is the placebo effect, right? People have a lot of misunderstandings about what the placebo effect means. So I'm gonna try to give you just 2 quick examples. So one is as a therapy for a person's ailment, right? And the placebo effect works. Well, what's working about it? People have a misunderstanding that's like, oh, well, the person thinks it's working, therefore it works. The main driver of the placebo effect is called regression to the mean. So if you come in and you suddenly have a very acute pain, like a cyst under your skin, right? And you come to me and you're like, I need an intervention. Can you treat this? I suddenly have this weird thing under my skin. It's hurting. I can do whatever I want. I can cut a banana and squidge the banana on your forehead. And I say, come back in 2 weeks. I bet you'll feel a lot better. And the person will feel a lot better because of regression to the mean. They'll return to their prior state when they didn't have that cyst thing, right? This is why placebo treatments can be dangerous, because if you do have something wrong with you, you want to get it checked out the right way to see what the underlying problem really is, right? The other way that people misthink of interventions has to do with natural development. So kids are developing all the time. So your kindergarten teacher might say, like, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to give your kid a bunch of activities to help with the transposing letters. And I'll tell you what, your kid will get better. Your kid is definitely going to get better. But you don't know if it was the intervention that your teacher assigned or if it was all the other development that your kid is doing. They're getting older, they're in school, they're exposed to all of this numeracy and other sources of learning. So your kid is going to get better. It may or may not be due to that intervention. And that's why in science, we have the most rigorous standard of a randomized controlled trial. In my field, we don't call it an experiment unless there is that randomized controlled trial element to tell if the difference maker really was the intervention or if it was just kids growing up. Was that too academic of an answer for you? Let me know. I want to know. All right, and going back to social emotional learning, what are some things to practice at home before the first day or even after? Ah, I love this because you got the even after in there. Nice job. I love this one. So I think I mentioned beforehand, one of the big things to keep in mind is that your kid's behavior is going to probably be quite different at school than it is at home. It's amazing to see kids come together in a creche and just the different sort of relationships they suddenly form and the ways they start interacting with each other. I had mentioned also that you can start doing some routines at home. You can get those routine cards so that you can be apart from the actual activity. You're not even at school, and you're with your kid after school and talking about, hey, so what happens when I drop you off at school? Maybe they have a tantrum normally, or they get distracted. All right, block out what are those individual pieces that occur when you drop your kid off from school. Have the cards there, mix them up, and be with your kid as they put them in order. That's an activity that you can do to help your kid feel more secure, more emotionally ready for those kinds of transitions. Especially if your kid has never been in school before, that's going to be the tough one. And I'm sorry, but probably they're going to cry for a long time when you drop them off that first day. It'll get better. It'll get better. And if you do want to do something about it, you can do this activity. So, for example, you show up, the teacher maybe checks the kid's temperature, you have to sign something, you hand over the lunch or the water bottle and the stuffy and the blanket. Those blankets then go into the cubby. Then your kid enters the room and sits at a table and is with one of their friends, and you leave, right? And you might even take it further in your routine cards of and then you have circle time and so on. And you could just ask your teacher what their daily schedule is and carry it all the way through the day if you want. Great, so is that all we're going to, all right, so I'm hearing from our producers, that's all we're gonna answer for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I loved having all of you here. I look forward to hosting more of these webinars for parents. If you have any other questions or comments, or would like to check out more from the ABC Mouse team, I encourage you to visit our Instagram or TikTok. Use @ABCmouse. So again, it's @ABCmouse on Instagram or TikTok. Or you can send me an email with your questions. Write it to webinar@abcmouse.com. Again, webinar@abcmouse.com. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you next time.